The day I signed everything away, I remember thinking one thing. This can't be how it ends. Not after 12 years. Not after everything I gave up. But the papers didn't care about history. They didn't care about loyalty or sacrifice, or the quiet ways I held our life together while he built his version of success. All they needed was my signature. "Just sign, Alina," my husband, Marcus Cole, said from across the polished conference table. His tone was calm to calm, like this was routine. It's like I was just another task he needed to complete before moving on. I looked down at the documents again. House transferred, investments transferred, business shares transferred. Even the car I had paid for with my own savings transferred. Everything, every single thing we had built together. Now legally his. "You're really taking all of it?" I asked quietly, my voice steadier than I felt. Marcus leaned back in his chair, adjusting his expensive watch like the question bored him. "That's what the agreement says." Agreement. As if I had ever truly had a choice. "You said this would be fair," I added. "And it is," he replied. "You're walking away without debt. It's more than most people get." I almost laughed. Almost 12 years of marriage, reduced to at least you're not in debt. My lawyer shifted uncomfortably beside me, but said nothing. That told me everything. The deal was done. All that was left was me accepting it. I glanced around the room-glass walls. City skylines stretching endlessly behind them, the kind of view Marcus had always loved. He used to say it reminded him of how far he'd come. What he never acknowledged was who helped him get there. "You built your empire," I said slowly, "on time I gave you. Didn't even hesitate. That's your perspective." Of course it was. Everything inconvenient always was. I stared at him for a long moment, searching for something, anything that resembled the man I once believed in. But he was gone. Maybe he had been for a long time. "Fine," I said finally. One word. Simple. Final. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake. Not anymore. Because something inside me had already settled. Not peace. Not acceptance. Something else. Something quieter. I signed page after page, signature after signature, until there was nothing left to give. Marcus didn't thank me. Didn't hesitate. He simply gathered the papers, slid them into his folder, and stood up. "Good," he said. "This was the right decision." "For who?" But I didn't ask, because I already knew the answer. As he turned to leave, he paused briefly. "Make sure you're out of the house by the end of the week," he added. "I'll have someone change the locks." And just like that. 12 years ended with a deadline. The door closed behind him. The room fell silent. My lawyer finally exhaled. "Alina, it's fine," I said. And surprisingly it was. Not because I hadn't lost everything, because Marcus had made one mistake. One small, critical mistake. I waited until I was alone, completely alone. Then I reached into my bag, slowly, carefully, and pulled out something I hadn't shown anyone. Not my lawyer, not Marcus, not even once in 12 years. A small, unassuming folder inside it. It's a single account, hidden, protected, untouched. My name, only mine. I opened it, running my fingers lightly over the documents. For the first time that day I smiled. Because while Marcus walked away thinking he had taken everything, he hadn't, not even close. In fact, he had just signed himself into a story he didn't understand yet. When he did, it would be far too late. I didn't rush out of the building. That would have looked emotional, broken, exactly what Marcus expected. Instead, I stayed seated for a few more seconds, letting the silence settle around me like a shield. The city skyline stretched beyond the glass walls, bright, indifferent, moving forward like nothing had just collapsed inside this room. "Are you sure you're okay?" my lawyer asked cautiously. I turned to him slowly. For a moment, I considered telling him about the account, about the one thing Marcus didn't know existed. But then I stopped myself. "No," I said simply. "I'm not. Honesty. Just not the full version." He nodded, sympathetic. "You gave up a lot today." I almost smiled. He had no idea. "I'll manage," I added, standing up and smoothing out my coat. Because I would. Just not in the way anyone expected. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. Every floor that passed felt like another version of my life slipping further away. Wife, partner, support system, all gone, replaced by something else. Something quieter, something sharper. When the doors finally opened, the lobby greeted me with polished marble floors and the low hum of people moving through their own lives. No one looked at me twice. No one knew. That was fine. I preferred it that way. I stepped outside, the cool air hitting my face like a reset button. That's when my phone buzzed. Marcus, of course. I stared at his name for a second before answering. Yes, I said calmly. Make sure you don't forget anything important, he said. Once you're out, that's it. No hesitation. No softness, just control. I glanced across the street, watching cars pass like nothing mattered. Don't worry, I replied. I won't forget. There was a pause. Like he was expecting more. Emotion, anger, begging, but I gave him nothing. He said finally, then hung up. I lowered the phone slowly. Really thought that was it. That the story ended with his version of control. I exhaled quietly, then started walking. The apartment I moved into wasn't impressive. Small, clean, temporary, exactly what I needed. I placed my bag on the table and stood there for a moment, taking in the silence. No shared memories, no reminders, just space. And space was power. Slowly, I opened my bag again and pulled out the folder. The one thing Marcus never saw. The one thing he never even thought to look for. I sat down and opened it carefully. Inside was more than just an account. It was years of decisions. Small ones, quiet ones, intentional ones. Money I had set aside. Investments made under a separate name. Assets that never touched our joint finances. At first, it had been cautioned. Then it became habit. And eventually, it became protection. Not from Marcus, at least not at the beginning. Somewhere along the way, something in me had shifted. I just didn't realize how important that shift would become, till now. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. It rang twice. Hello? The voice on the other end was familiar. Sharp. Professional. Daniel, I said. Pause. Then Alina. Yes. Another pause. Longer this time. I didn't expect to hear from you again, I know, I replied. But I need your help. That got his attention. With what? I looked down at the documents in front of me, then out the window at the quiet street below, with something that should have been mine all along. Silence. Then a quiet exhale. Is this about Marcus? It is. His tone shifted instantly. Focus now. Tell me everything. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes for a brief second. Because this was where it started. Not the end of my marriage, not the loss, but what came after. I signed everything today, I said, and he asked. I opened my eyes again, and he thinks he won. A pause. Then slowly, did he? I looked down at the account one more time, then smiled faintly. No, I said.
Not even close.
Daniel didn't respond right away. He didn't need to. I could almost hear the shift on the other end of the line the moment his mind moved from casual curiosity to full attention. Start from the beginning, he said finally, leaned back in the chair, letting out a slow breath. Marcus filed for divorce, I said. Fast, clean, aggressive. That sounds like him, Daniel replied. It gets better, I added. He took everything. There was a pause. Everything, Daniel repeated. House, business, joint accounts, investments, I said. All signed over today, silence. Then, and you agreed to that? I closed my eyes briefly. Yes. Another pause. Longer this time. Alina. That doesn't make sense, he said carefully. You're not someone who just walks away from that kind of leverage. I smiled faintly. That's because I didn't. Now he was interested. I could hear it clearly. Okay? Daniel said slowly. Now you have my attention. I reached for the folder again, opening it with deliberate calm. Hey. There's an account, I said. One Marcus doesn't know about. How hidden are we talking? He asked. Completely separate, I replied. Different name structure, different access. It's never been connected to anything we shared. Daniel exhaled quietly. Why? That question lingered for a moment, because the answer wasn't simple. At first I said, security, and later, I looked down at the documents. Instinct. He didn't interrupt. Didn't question it, because people like Daniel understood something most didn't. Instinct wasn't random. It was recognition. Before proof existed. What's in the account? He asked. I ran my finger lightly across the edge of the paper. Enough. That's not a number. It's not meant to be, I replied. He let out a short breath, almost amused. You haven't changed? No, I said quietly. I just stopped pretending. That earned me silence again. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It was calculation. All right, Daniel said finally. So what do you want to do? I leaned forward slightly. That depends on what? On how exposed Marcus really is. There it was. The shift from reaction to strategy. Daniel picked up on it immediately. You think he hid something? He said. I know he did, I replied. What kind of something? I didn't hesitate. Assets. That word hung in the air between us. Heavy, specific, dangerous. And you didn't challenge it during the divorce, he asked. No, why not? Because I needed him to believe I wouldn't. Silence. Then that's risky, I know. And if you're wrong? I smiled slightly. I'm not. Daniel let out a slow exhale. Okay, he said. Let's assume you're right. What's your angle? I stood up, walking slowly toward the window. Outside, the city moved like it always did, unaware, unbothered. Perfect. He thinks I walked away with nothing, I said. Which means he's not being careful, Daniel added. Exactly. And you want to catch him off guard? Yes. Another pause. Then you're not just trying to recover what you lost, Daniel said. It wasn't a question. I turned slightly, looking at my reflection in the glass. No, I said. You want more? I didn't deny it, because at this point, there was no reason to. I want what was always mine, I said calmly. Daniel was quiet for a second, and all right, he said. Then we do this properly. I felt something settle into place. Focus, direction, control. What do you need from me? I asked. I'll start digging, he replied. Financial trails, hidden accounts, anything that doesn't match what he disclosed. And if you find something, his answer was immediate. Then we don't just respond, he said. We escalate. A slow breath left my lungs. Because this was the part Marcus never planned for. Not the divorce, not the loss, but what came after. Good, I said quietly. Then I looked down at the folder one last time. At the one thing he never knew existed, because when he realizes what he missed, I paused, letting the thought finish itself. It won't just cost him money. Daniel didn't respond. He didn't need to. He already understood. Because this wasn't about recovery anymore. It was about consequence. And Marcus was about to learn the difference. The next few days were quiet. On the surface, nothing changed. Marcus went back to his routine. Meetings, calls, public appearances. The same carefully constructed image he had always maintained. Confident, controlled, untouchable. And for anyone watching from the outside, that's exactly what he looked like. But beneath that, cracks were forming. Why? I just had to wait for them to widen. Send me everything you have on him, Daniel said over the phone 3 days later. I stood in my apartment, the morning light spilling across the floor, calm and steady. I already did, I replied. I know, he said. I need more. I caught my attention. More, I repeated. Anything that feels small, he said. Transactions, side conversations, old accounts. The things people don't think matter. I frowned slightly. Why? There was a pause. Then, because he's hiding something, Daniel said. My grip tightened slightly around the phone. You found something? Not yet, he admitted, but I can feel it. I almost smiled. Instinct. Again. Marcus doesn't move without a backup plan, Daniel continued. Now if he pushed this divorce through that fast, it means he already secured what he didn't want you to see. That made sense. Too much sense. And you think it's recent? I asked. Yes, he replied, which means it's traceable. That word mattered. Traceable meant vulnerable. Vulnerable meant action. All right, I said. I'll look again. Good, Daniel replied. And Alina, yes, don't rush this, he said. People make mistakes when they think they've already won. I looked out the window, watching the quiet street below. He already made one, I said softly. He underestimated you. Daniel didn't argue. Because he didn't need to. That evening, I found myself standing across the street from the house. My house. Or at least it used to be. The lights were on. Of course they were. Marcus never liked darkness. It's too unpredictable. I watched for a moment. not out of nostalgia, not out of regret, just observation. Because something about this didn't sit right. And then I saw it. A car. Not his. It's not one I recognized. Parked in the driveway like it belonged there. My eyes narrowed slightly. Interesting. I crossed the street slowly, my steps measured. Not rushing. Not hesitating. Just moving forward. As I got closer, the front door opened, and there he was, Marcus. Still the same posture, same confidence, same illusion. But then she stepped out behind him. Vanessa, of course. Faint smile touched my lips. That didn't take long. Gosh. They spoke briefly, too far for me to hear, but close enough to read. Comfortable, familiar, like the transition had already been made. Yes. Like I had been replaced before I even signed the papers. That didn't hurt, not anymore. If anything, it clarified things. Marcus walked her to the car, opening the door like nothing in his world had shifted. Like he hadn't just dismantled a 12-year marriage, like it meant nothing. Vanessa paused before getting in. She said something. He laughed, and that laugh, that confidence, that certainty, told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't being careful, not even a little. Good, because careless people make visible mistakes. Invisible mistakes leave traces. I stepped back slightly into the shadows, unnoticed, invisible, just like he always believed I was. Vanessa's car pulled away. Marcus stood there for a second longer, checking his phone, relaxed, unbothered, certain. Then he turned and walked back inside. The door closed behind him, and just like that, disappeared from view. I stood there for a moment longer, letting the silence settle. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. Dialed Daniel. He answered on the second ring. Tell me you found something, he said. I watched the house one last time, then turned away. I didn't find it, I said calmly. Pause. Then what did you find? I started walking, slow, certain. I found where to look. Daniel didn't speak for a moment. Then, all right, he said. Start talking. I walked slowly down the street, the sound of my heels steady against the pavement, matching the clarity forming in my mind. He's not being careful, I said, not with her, not with anything. That's good for us, Daniel replied. What did you see? Vanessa's already moved in, I said. There was a short pause. That fast? He asked. Yes, that means he's comfortable, Daniel said. Too comfortable. Exactly. And comfortable people, he added, make lazy decisions. I smiled faintly. We're thinking the same way. It's treating everything like it's finished, I said. Like there's nothing left to manage. Which means whatever he hid, Daniel continued, he believes is completely safe. I stopped walking. That word again, safe. Nothing was truly safe, not when someone was looking for it. There's more, I said. I'm listening. I turned slightly, glancing back toward the house in the distance. He didn't hesitate. I continued. No tension. No caution. He's moving like someone who already secured everything important. That narrows it down, Daniel said. How, if he's that relaxed? Daniel explained. Then whatever he hid, it's not connected to anything obvious. So no direct accounts, I said. Exactly, he replied. There's no standard transfers. No visible trails. That made things more complicated, but not impossible. There's always a trail, I said quietly. Always, Daniel agreed. You just have to look where no one else thinks to, I exhaled slowly, because I knew exactly where that meant. Not in the numbers, not at first. In the behavior. I think it's tied to something physical, I said. Right. What do you mean? Something he can control directly, I replied. Something he feels secure, having close. Daniel didn't answer immediately. Then property? He asked. Maybe, I said, or something attached to it. Storage assets, documents, he added. Yes. The pieces were starting to align, not fully, but enough to move forward. Do you still have access to the house? Daniel asked. I hesitated then. No, I said. He changed the locks. Yeah, that doesn't matter, Daniel replied. I stopped walking again. What? Access isn't always about keys, he said. I smiled slightly. Because Marcus. He always focused on the obvious. Locks, contracts, signatures. He controlled what he could see, which meant he often overlooked what he couldn't. Give me a day, Daniel said. I'll pull property records. Is anything tied to his name, his business, shell structures? Everything, and I'll handle the rest, I said. Be careful, he added. I always am. That's not true, he said. I raised an eyebrow, even though he couldn't see it. You trusted him, it landed. Quiet, accurate. Not anymore, I said. I know, Daniel replied. That night I sat in my apartment, the folder open in front of me again. The account. The one thing Marcus never saw wasn't just protection anymore. It was leverage. And leverage was only useful if you knew when to use it. I picked up my phone again, scrolling through old photos. Not for memories, it's for details. Backgrounds, rooms. Corners people forget are visible. And then I found it. A photo from 2 years ago. Marcus standing in his office. Behind him, a cabinet. Ordinary. Unremarkable. Locked, but slightly open. Just enough to notice. Just enough to question. I leaned closer, studying it. Something about it felt off. Not the cabinet itself. What was inside it, or rather, what wasn't supposed to be there. A faint smile formed on my lips. Daniel, I said quietly, dialing his number again. He answered immediately. That was fast. I think I found it, I said. A pause. Then where? I stared at the image one last time, at the detail Marcus never thought anyone would notice. In his office, I said, something he thought was invisible. Silence. Then a quiet, focused response. Good. I closed the photo, my mind already moving ahead. This wasn't just about finding what he hid anymore, it was about what came after. And Marcus had just made another mistake. Daniel didn't waste time. Describe it, he said immediately. I leaned back in my chair, the image still fresh in my mind. Tall cabinet, I said. Dark wood. Built into the wall behind his desk. Locked? Yes. Visible keyhole or digital? Keyhole, I replied. Old-fashioned, which means intentional. Daniel hummed quietly, processing. People don't use physical locks unless they want control, he said, or privacy that can't be traced digitally. Exactly, I said. And you think whatever he's hiding is in there. I'm sure of it. There was a pause. Then all right, Daniel said. Then the question isn't what's inside. It's how to get to it, I finished. Right. I stood up slowly, pacing across the room, because getting in wasn't going to be simple. Marcus wasn't careless with things he considered important. He was careless with people. That was his weakness. Not systems, not structures. People. And that's where I had the advantage. I can get inside, I said. Daniel didn't respond right away then. How? He asked. I looked at my reflection in the window, calm, focused, certain. The same way I always did, I replied. By not being seen as a threat, silence. Right. Then a quiet exhale. You're serious. I am. Alina, he said carefully. This isn't the same as before. He's already cut you out. If he sees you there, he won't, I said. Can't guarantee that. I don't need to, I replied. I just need timing. Always, I'll be on standby, he added. If anything goes wrong, it won't. You don't know that. I stopped pacing. He was right, but doubt wasn't useful here. I know enough, I said. Another pause. Then fine, Daniel said. Call me the second you're in. I will. The next evening came faster than expected. Maybe I was just ready. I stood across the street again, watching the house. The lights were on. But fewer this time. Quieter. Vanessa's car wasn't there. That mattered. Because Marcus alone was predictable. Marcus with someone else was distraction. I waited 10 minutes, 20. Then the front door opened. Marcus stepped out, adjusting his jacket as he moved. Phone pressed to his ear. Distracted. Focused on something else. Perfect. He walked to his car, still talking, and drove off without a second glance. I didn't move right away. I never did. Because rushing creates mistakes, and I wasn't here to make any. I counted to 30, then 60. Then I crossed the street. Calm, steady, certain. The house stood exactly as it always had. Familiar, controlled, silent. I reached the front door and paused. Not because I was unsure, because I was precise. Then I reached into my bag. Not for a key, for something else. Small tool. Simple. Effective. Marcus trusted locks. I trusted preparation. It took less than a minute. A quiet click, and the door opened. Just like that. I stepped inside. The air felt the same. Nothing had changed, except everything had. I closed the door softly behind me, listening. Silence. Good. I moved through the house without hesitation. Not searching. Not wandering. I already knew where I was going. His office. The one place he thought was completely his. The door was closed. Of course it was. I turned the handle slowly, unlocked. He always locked the cabinet, never the room. That was his mistake. I stepped inside. The space was exactly as I remembered. Clean, organized, controlled, and there it was. Behind the desk, the cabinet. I walked toward it slowly, my focus narrowing. This was it. The moment everything shifted. I reached out, my fingers brushing against the cool surface of the lock. Then I paused, just for a second. Not out of fear, out of certainty. Because once this opened, there was no going back. I exhaled quietly, then reached into my bag again. Got to work. That was the first thing I realized. Marcus had always believed complexity meant security. But real security was subtle, quiet, unnoticed. This was neither. It took less than a minute. Soft click echoed in the stillness of the room. I paused, listened. Nothing good. I opened the cabinet slowly, carefully, not rushing. Because whatever was inside was the reason I was here. The door creaked slightly as it moved. Then it stopped. Not because something blocked it, because I did. Because the moment I saw what was inside, everything changed. Files. Stacks of them. Neatly organized. Labeled. Precise. Marcus always liked order, control, documentation. But this wasn't just organization. This was concealment. I reached in and pulled out the first folder, opened it, and there it was. Property transfers. Multiple names I didn't recognize. Companies that didn't exist, at least not publicly. Shell structures. Exactly what Daniel suspected. I flipped through the pages quickly, my mind already connecting the dots. Dates, amounts, locations. All of it carefully moved, carefully hidden, and none of it. Declared, a slow breath left my lungs. Because this wasn't just deception. This was exposure waiting to happen. I pulled out another file. Then another, each one confirming the same thing. Marcus hadn't just taken everything we had. He had moved what he didn't want seen, protected it, hidden it, believing no one would ever look deep enough to find it. But I had, and now I understood everything. I reached for my phone, snapping quick photos of each document. Precise, clear, enough to prove everything. But not enough to leave a trace of disturbance, because this wasn't the moment to confront him. This was the moment to prepare. I placed the files back exactly as I found them. Every edge aligned, every detail untouched. Then I closed the cabinet slowly. The click of the lock sounded louder this time. Final, decisive. I stepped back, my heart steady, my mind already moving ahead. This wasn't just leverage. This was power, real power. The kind Marcus had spent years trying to control. And now, it wasn't his anymore. I stepped out of the office and moved through the house just as quietly as I had entered. No hesitation, no mistakes, because this had to stay clean. The front door opened just as easily as before. The night air hit me again, cool and sharp. Grounding. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me without a sound. Then I walked. Not fast, not slow, just certain. I didn't stop until I was halfway down the street. Only then did I pull out my phone. Daniel answered on the first ring. "Tell me you got something." I let out a quiet breath. I got everything. Silence. Then how bad is it? I glanced back toward the house, at the place Marcus thought was secure. "It's not bad," I said. A pause. "Then what is it?" I smiled faintly. "It's complete. That was worse. Much worse. Because incomplete problems can be managed. Complete ones, they collapse everything." "You're sure?" Daniel asked. "Completely," I replied. He hid assets through shell companies, property transfers, undisclosed accounts. Daniel exhaled slowly. Then he didn't just protect himself, he said. No, I replied. He exposed himself. Another pause. Longer this time, because now we both understood what this meant. This changes everything, he said. Yes. What do you want to do? I looked down at my phone for a second, at the photos, at the proof, at the truth Marcus thought would never surface. Then I looked back up, forward, because that's where this was going.
Oh.
I said quietly. A small, controlled smile formed on my lips. Now we finish it. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was anxious, because I was clear. For the first time in a long time, everything made sense. Every decision Marcus had made, every move he thought was calculated, it all led here. To exposure, to consequence, to truth. The next morning, I met Daniel in his office. He didn't waste time on greetings. Show me, he said. I handed him my phone. He went through the photos one by one, his expression shifting with each file. Focused, sharp, then satisfied. This is enough, he said. Enough for what? I asked. He looked up at me. To reopen everything. That word settled into place. Reopen. Because Marcus thought it was over. He thought he had closed the door, locked it, walked away clean. But he hadn't. Not even close. What happens now? I asked. Daniel leaned back slightly, already thinking ahead. Now we file, he said. Undisclosed assets, fraudulent concealment. Everything he didn't declare becomes a liability. And the divorce changes completely, he replied. This doesn't just shift the outcome. He paused. It flips it. Slow breath left my lungs. Not relief, not satisfaction, just balance. Marcus didn't expect the call. That much was obvious. Daniel insisted on being present when it happened. Not for drama, it's for precision. I sat across from him as he dialed, put the call on speaker. It rang twice. Then, yes. Marcus answered, his tone already impatient. Mr. Cole, Daniel said calmly. This is Daniel Reyes, representing Elena Carter. A pause. Then what is this about? Marcus asked. Your divorce? Daniel replied. Another pause. Longer this time. I thought that was settled. It was, Daniel said, until new information came to light. Silence. Heavy, controlled, dangerous. What kind of information? Marcus asked. Daniel glanced at me briefly. I didn't move. I didn't react. Just waited. It's the kind you failed to disclose, Daniel said. And there it was, the shift. Subtle, but undeniable. I don't know what you're talking about, Marcus said, but his voice had changed. Less certain, less controlled. Daniel didn't argue, didn't push. He didn't need to. Multiple properties, he said calmly. Shell companies, undeclared accounts. Silence. Then that's not, we have documentation, Daniel cut in. Another pause. Longer this time, because now Marcus knew. Not suspected, not guessed. Knew. This is a misunderstanding, he said finally. No, Daniel replied. It's a failure to disclose. The distinction mattered. A lot. What do you want? Marcus asked. That question said everything, because it wasn't denial anymore. It was negotiation. Daniel looked at me, not speaking, just asking. I leaned forward slightly, close enough for my voice to carry clearly. We want accuracy, I said. Marcus went quiet, completely, and in that silence, I could feel it. The moment everything he built started to crack. You already signed, he said. Yes, I replied calmly. Then this doesn't change anything. I smiled slightly. It changes everything. Another pause, shorter this time, because now he understood, or at least, he was starting to. What happens next? He asked. Daniel answered this time. Now, he said. We go through everything legally, thoroughly, and if I don't agree. Daniel didn't hesitate. Then it gets worse. Silence. Then a quiet exhale from Marcus. Not defeat, but realization, because for the first time, he wasn't ahead. He wasn't in control. He wasn't untouchable. All right, he said finally, and just like that, it was over. I stepped outside Daniel's office a few minutes later, the city moving around me like it always had, unchanged, unbothered. But I wasn't the same. Not anymore. Marcus thought he took everything. He thought he won, but he missed one thing. One account, one detail, one mistake, and that changed everything. Didn't chase revenge, I didn't create chaos. I just let the truth do what it always does. Surface. And when it didn't just correct the story, it rewrote it on my terms. And this time, made sure every detail was seen, exactly as it was. No illusions, no control, just truth. And that was more powerful than anything he ever took.